5 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today on this very important topic. After a 28-year career with DEA, I've been supporting law enforcement agencies all over the country, and I also support the grieving families that are burying their loved ones on a daily basis. I believe the safety and security of America must be a top priority, and the current border policies are placing every American at risk. The Mexican cartels are taking over and taking advantage of the vulnerabilities at the border, but they're working with the Chinese transnational criminals at levels we've never seen in the country. They're operating with no fear. The brave men and women in CBP are doing tremendous work, but they're distracted every day because they're dealing with a tsunami of migrants coming in from over 150 countries. How can any reasonable person in America think the current situation at the border, which is now impacting all of America, is safe and secure? Makes no sense. Look at the historic number of deaths, right? I deal with this every day, 9,161 dead Americans. Headline news today, 9 in Cleveland, Ohio, most ever in a 24-hour period, dead. Last month, another public service alert because there were 5 dead in a 12-hour period. This is what's happening. What about Ray Lewis, the legendary NFL player, lost his son? What about this famous actor, Robert De Niro's grandson, dead? And what about baby Elijah in Florida with the fentanyl that a mother mixed in the blender? Look at the escalating crime in the country. Look at the known gotaways, 1.5 million, that are all over the country. We don't even know who they are, where they are, what they're doing here. Look at the 143 migrants that have been apprehended this year at the border. Think about that. There was only 3 in 2020 during the last administration and in the last year. Think of how many terrorists and criminals are part of the gotaways. This is common sense. You don't have to be an expert to understand that. Look at the record number of migrant deaths from them making treacherous journeys to get here, baking in the desert and in the back of tractor trailers. And this man is pulling them off the desert with the sheriffs and stuff on the ground. Look at the sexual assaults and the rapes and the migrants on the journey. Remember, depression, anxiety, and mental illness are on the rise, and all of our Americans are turning to drugs for help. But unfortunately, the cartels have tainted the illicit drug supply. Allowing Mexican cartel operatives and unidentified people from around the world to enter the country illegally at record levels is enhancing the ability of criminals to kill Americans. This is not what the government should be doing to keep us safe. You don't have to be a border expert, an immigration expert to understand that the administration's policies related to the border are a recipe for disaster. And I'm not a MAGA lunatic, okay? Look at the recent statement on China made by FBI Director Wray. Now let's think about it. He said how China is the most, biggest national security threat to our long term of this country. Based on that warning, let's look at the facts. Already this year, 14,655 Chinese nationals, many of them military-aged men, are being apprehended on the border. Let's look deeper. That's a 1,540% increase from last year and over a 10,700% increase from 21. So my question to everyone here, what are they coming here for, military-aged men from China? And how many are in those gotaways? Remember, the bombing campaign from China continues from the Chinese labs with the xylazine. This is a tranquilizer for horses. It's rotting people from the inside out, causing necrosis. Mike McCall, thank you, sir, because you made this statement. I'll never forget it. Selling fentanyl to America is a great foreign policy for China. He's right on point. And the man's been around the Homeland Security issues a long time. Synthetic drugs made in labs in China and Mexico are record levels, game changer for the U.S. The Chinese criminals are providing critical money laundering services, which I can answer questions about. This is a disaster for America, and I'm concerned. It's not a red or a blue issue. It's a red, white, and blue issue, and every American should care. So, in my view, it's a chemical weapon destroying our country rapidly. One of the biggest obstacles for U.S. law enforcement is the corrupt, high-level government of Mexico corruption. We can't rely on soft on crime and corrupt leaders in Mexico to save our kids. So as far as I know, there's never been a terrorist organization in the history of America that has killed this many Americans. The cartels must be dealt with accordingly and severely for what they're doing to our families and communities. Law enforcement's done tremendous work, and my hat goes off to all of them, saving lives every day. DEA last year, 58 million fake pills, 13,000 pounds of fentanyl, 400 million deadly dosage units taken off the street. Homeland Security investigation, CBP during Operation Blue Lotus, 8,200 pounds of fentanyl, 2 months at 2 POEs. The sad part everyone has to think about, how much is being produced and how much is already here. So DEA warns Sinaloa and Jalisco the biggest threats, drug threats we've ever seen. So folks, where's the Operation Warp Speed COVID-like thing for fentanyl? Last thing, without border security, we have no country. Thank you very much. And for the ranking member, sorry we're wasting your time.
I now recognize.
Hold on a minute. Why you reference me?
Because in your opening statement, you said that this was a charade, it was a waste of time, whatever words you used, and kids are dying at record levels, and I don't appreciate that.
Look, I said nothing.
Hold on, the ranking member is not recognized. We're going to continue on with our witnesses. Ms. Feldback, I just want to make a statement here. Look, members of the witnesses as well as members of the committee, we have some rules, and those rules are that you direct your comments to the chair. So if you direct them to another member on the dais or even within the committee, we don't do that unless we ask for time to yield, and then you can ask a question. There are procedures on how to do that. Your comments, especially for the witnesses, should be directed to the chair. I want to make sure that's real clear.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, the gentleman is recognized.
I appreciate that comment, but I really want to raise a point of order here.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever seen a witness personally attack a member like that at a hearing.
Okay, I'll clarify it. You're no longer recognized. Mr. Malls, the better way to have said what you wanted to say would have been to say, someone on the committee, or to say, it's been said that this is a waste of time. And you could say that's offensive to me. There are Americans dying. You could make the comment like that. But to direct it at the ranking member is inappropriate, and I think everyone would agree with that. With that, I recognize myself.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Carter, you're recognized.
Thank you. Parliamentary inquiry. Shouldn't our role be to discourage disrespectful behavior and not coach on how to do it more appropriately?
Look, hold on. Let me be clear here. In previous hearings, we've had individuals attack individuals on my side of the aisle, and I gavelled them down.
No,
You cannot address your comments to an individual about an individual, but you can say Secretary Mayorkas lied, but you can't say Secretary Mayorkas is a liar. I know it's a subtle difference, but the rules are very clear. The rules of the House are very clear on that. And so the point is you cannot direct anything other than to the chair. That's the rule. And that's the rule we'll live by.
And to preserve decorum and respect, whether we agree or disagree, no member, Republican, Democrat, or other, no member of the committee should disrespect a member of that's a witness. But what we witnessed a second ago was a direct attack. I appreciate you telling him he shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But I'd like to go a step further, may I, if I would, very respectfully.
Look, if we're going to entertain a debate on this, it needs to be two-sided.
Hold on just a second.
If we're going to entertain a debate, I insist that it be
Mr. Bishop,
two-sided.
you hold on just a second, and I'll recognize you in a moment.
Very well.
Don't do that again, please.
I will be heard if we're going to hear from both sides.
Finish your comment.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. My only comment is that we should always preserve decorum and respect. We can disagree without being disrespectful.
And
if you think that's a debate, Mr. Bishop,
you're disagreeing with me. I appreciate that. And what I'm saying is there's a way to say things without directing your comment against an individual. You can say that Secretary Mayorkas lied. You can't say Secretary Mayorkas is a liar. You can say, I don't think this is a waste of time. And I'm offended when someone suggests that it is a waste of time. I think making that point clear is important for the whole committee. Mr. Bishop, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the outset, the ranking member said he was embarrassed that we would undertake this hearing, that it was so worthless it was embarrassing to him. That witness responded to that because it was an attack on that witness. Every witness on this panel and every member on this side of the dais. I'd like to know why a member of Congress, because he sits up here at this dais, can feel free to disrespect people who come at our invitation to testify by declaring what they have to say about youth being killed by fentanyl poisoning across this country, that is not worth this committee's time, but a response to that is objecting to. And I'll say another thing, forensically. In every hearing that I have attended where witnesses testify, they address their remarks to the chairman and to the ranking member.
I've never heard it done otherwise. I've never heard anybody remonstrated for addressing the ranking member, and I don't know why this would be the first time that would be brought up, and I object to it.
Okay, thank you. Hold on, we're not going to
May I respond to that?
No, I will advise members that under Clause 1 of Rule 17 of the Rules of the House, they must observe the House standards of decorum in debate and conduct. They must speak and act respectfully and may not use disorderly words, unparliamentary language, such as words impugning the motives of their colleagues or words that are personally offensive. I would encourage the members to adhere to the House standards of decorum and proceed in order. We need to get on with this, and the gentleman yields. I now recognize Ms. Jackson Lee from Texas for 5 minutes.
I've been in this committee and I've watched Chairman Green and Chairman Thompson work very well together on a number of issues. In fact, they have shown themselves to be respectful of each other. For that, I say thank you. I've had the ability to monitor what has been going on in this room, and I frankly believe that problems don't get solved by castigating and making incorrect statements. I also have a 28-year history in this Congress and have been involved with the issue of immigration for at least that long a period of time. In the Judiciary Committee as ranking member of the Immigration Subcommittee, in this committee as chair of the Transportation Security Committee, ranking chair of the Border Security Committee, and as a Texan, have been to the border many times. I do believe that we can do this and solve the problem of immigration reform together. What I also know is, at least the border in Texas, there are many who are on the border that don't want a border wall because of its intrusiveness. In addition, because of topography and design, the border wall sometimes is not effectively put in the right place to be able to create any kind of criminal incident. After Title 42, we have found statistically, as answered by those at CBP, Customs Border Protection, and the Border Patrol, that numbers have gone down. It is clear that we have work to do together on those who are coming across. It is clear that not one American, no matter what their party affiliation, abhors cartels, violence, and viciousness, and will come together to work on that issue. But it does no good for any of us to suggest that the President of the United States and the Secretary of Homeland Security are the key and only reasons for migration. I take offense, and it is wrong, frankly, because migration is a worldwide concern. Some would say problem, others would say crisis. People desperately come, even if it's for their economic goodness, and they argue something else. We well know that immigrants contribute $1.3 trillion in spending power to the economy. We also realize that not one single person sitting in this room was an indigenous person in the United States of America. Your ancestors came from somewhere. Mine came unwillingly in bondage. But it is clear to me that we have to find a better way. Let me quickly raise this question. Let me quickly do so. In 2018, the nation was horrified when a domestic terrorist shot down 11 worshipers at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. Before going on this rampage, the shooter shared a manifesto alleging that, quote, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society likes to bring invaders in that kill our people. I can't sit by and watch my people get slaughtered. 2 weeks before that, he called immigrants hostile invaders on social media. Ms. Vaughn, do you believe there is a flood of immigrant invaders at the southern border who are slaughtering victims in American communities? This is a yes or no answer.
No, they're taking advantage of the opportunities that are offered by the current policies.
So you've answered no. So let me just say this. In your testimony on page 8 of your written testimony, you say there is a flood of people to the border brought on by the Biden-Mayorkas policies, and that these careless policies have created scores of new victims in American communities, all of which were preventable crimes. Ms. Vaughn, the issue of your partisan extremism goes beyond your testimony today. On November 4th, 2021, you alleged that the tragic murder of a man in Florida That year was another casualty due to Biden's open border. And 2 years before that, on January 8, 2019, you laid blame for the horrific murder of a police officer, Mr. Singh, in San Joaquin Valley at the feet of Democrats' border weakening and sanctuary policies. I find this very dangerous because we need to come together as Americans, frankly, to be able to work, not name call, but to be able to say none of us wanted those kinds of incidents. How dare you say that any of us will want to have an officer killed or family killed? It is untenable. Neither does the chairman, neither does the president, neither does the secretary. Let me move quickly to something that's very important, Mr. Green, and I appreciate if you would allow me to do that. I happen to be someone who knows that there are barriers that can be utilized in certain ways, being a Texan, and I also know that we need to stop penalizing nonprofits for trying to help persons so that cities wouldn't have to put persons somewhere because the nonprofits have them. But let me raise this to a former DPS. I want to applaud a DPS officer who is on duty today in Texas, who became a whistleblower, to ask the question, why is state government and this Lone Star effort causing immigrants to die in the water, causing a pregnant woman to miscarry over the raised wire and the boys that are there, forcing them to go into deeper water, why a mother lost her life, her child's life, and another child is missing, why a little 4-year-old was denied water. This is the words of a DPS whistleblower right on staff today. And the question would be to all of you, as I ask the question, this is not America. And the Border Patrol agents saying that the razor wire and the boys are creating a difficult situation for them because as sworn officers of the United States of America, they are sworn to protect these people even as they will send them back. And they are going into deeper water to save lives.
Gentlelady's time is
That is
expired.
not, I'm putting that on the record, Mr. Chairman, because I want an investigation. These are not governmental witnesses. They are witnesses who've come to share their stories, but I want an investigation.
Can I respond to that?
I want an investigation.
Is there availability for me to respond to that accusation?
Hold on. I am taking control back. The gentlelady's time is expired.
And the
Mr.
gentleman is not-
D'Esposito Mr. D'Esposito is recognized from New York, and you may yield if you'd like to Mr. Jones.
The gentleman is not on staff at this point.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to yield 30 seconds of my time to Mr. Jones.
I am the only one sitting in this room that's been exactly where those accusations were made. On my phone, I've got video of what the men and women of law enforcement at local, state, and especially the Texas Department of Public Safety and National Guard are going through as hundreds of people 3 miles from the closest port of entry are being crossed by the cartels. And to say that the men and women of DPS are throwing babies into the river is absolute absurd. And that they would do that. That's
I didn't say that.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr.
The
Chairman,
gentleman
you
may.
cannot malign me in this room. I did not say
not
that.
only
Ms.
that,
Jackson Lee, I
did
believe
not
this
say
is my
that.
time, Ms. Jackson Lee.
Mr. D'Esposito, you've reclaimed your time.
Thank you. Grandchildren. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Menendez of New Jersey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We can all agree that Mexican cartels pose a direct threat to U.S. interest. We can all agree that we need to fight the scourge of fentanyl in this country. We can also agree that this body and the United States government should prioritize addressing these issues. But today's hearing has not been a serious discussion of ways to protect American families from cartel activities or fentanyl trafficking. How can we engage in good faith discussions of border policies when this committee's majority is using this committee to arrive at a predetermined destination, the impeachment of Secretary Mayorkas, a destination they have said both publicly and behind closed doors they are set on reaching, no matter what the facts are, no matter what the administration has done to address these critical issues. When witnesses confirm what the majority already believes instead of engaging in actual fact-finding. Ms. Vaughn, you work for the Center for Immigration Studies, is that correct?
Yes, I do.
Ms. Vaughn, yes or no? Did you speak at an event organized by the Social Contract Press?
Look, I
Yes,
am
yes or no?
saddened
Yes or no?
that
Yes
you-
or no? Yes or no? You were able to answer other questions in a yes or no fashion, yes or no?
Look, what
You
I'm
did.
saying is that you're
Did you
trying to
appear? Did you
distract from
appear?
a serious
Excuse me,
topic by
Mr. Chairman. This is my
attempting
time.
to smear me,
No, I'm just asking you
The
questions.
gentleman reclaims his time.
denigrating.
Did you appear alongside an editor of Chronicles magazine? Yes or no?
Could you repeat it, please?
Did you appear alongside an editor of Chronicles magazine? Yes or no?
Not that I know of.
Did you give an interview to the American Free Press?
I've never heard of it.
You've never heard of the American Free Press?
No, sir.
You've never done work with the American Free Press? Okay, well, we'll go back to the record.
Explain to me what
I think it's important that, excuse me, I'm reclaiming my time. I think it's important that we shed light on the organization you work for, as well as the three organizations that I believe you have either worked for or appeared alongside. The Center for Immigration Studies has been labeled an anti-immigrant hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center.
That's a complete...
The Social Contract Press, a white nationalist publisher, has been labeled as a designated hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, Chronicles magazine is a publication with strong neo-Confederate ties that caters to the white nationalist movement. And according to the Anti-Defamation League, the American Free Press is an anti-Semitic newspaper founded by a Holocaust denier. On the day that Congress welcomed the Israeli president to address us, we have someone who has contributed to an anti-Semitic newspaper founded by a Holocaust denier. A witness who makes 9 assertions in her written testimony about the administration's policies, assertions the majority will likely rely on to further their cause for the impeachment of Secretary Mayorkas. Yet only 2 citations were provided for those 9 assertions, both of which were provided by the Center for Immigration Studies, where you work, again, an organization that's been labeled an anti-immigrant hate group. I also think it's important that we discuss some of these issues through the lens of our values. Members of the majority, along with some of our witnesses, have mentioned their concern for the safety of migrants. Ms. Vaughn, you contend that the administration's policies expose migrants to abuse by the cartels. I'm glad that you recognize that the long and difficult journey that migrants face is an issue of concern. Immigrants travel to the United States by any means they can in search of a better life for their family, including on foot for hundreds, if not thousands of miles, enduring exposure to injury and illness along the way. That's why it's unconscionable to me that you also go out of your way to praise what Governor Abbott of Texas has done. You say in your testimony that, quote, to the extent there is any improvement at all, it is most likely due to efforts by the state of Texas to physically block the entry points, such as by patrolling the Rio Grande River, installing razor wire and buoys. I'm sure that many of us saw the reports this week about how Texas is telling their medics in the Department of Public Safety to treat migrants inhumanely. There's been a soaring heat wave in the Southwest, yet medics have reportedly been told not to give out water. Governor Abbott has made crossing the Rio Grande River a more dangerous and even deadly proposition by adding the buoys and razor wire mentioned that you alluded to in your testimony, including in areas of the river with high water and low visibility. This report included a story of a 19-year-old woman trapped in the wire who was having a miscarriage. 5 immigrants have drowned in 1 week period in the area near where this wire was installed. Where is the humanity for these people? Where is your outrage when you hear these stories? What are you doing to change the outcome for the people trying to get to this country, our country, to live their American dream for the betterment of their families? Where is your outrage when they have to encounter these conditions trying to get here to seek asylum? I yield back.
The gentleman yields. I recognize Mr. Burkeen of Oklahoma.
Mr. Chairman, at the onset of my time, I'd like to yield 30 seconds to Ms. Vaughn.
Ms. Vaughn, you're recognized.
I am outraged because I cannot imagine a more inhumane policy than one that entices vulnerable migrants to turn over their life savings, their families, their kids to criminal smuggling organizations because they believe that they will be allowed to stay in this country and end up in debt bondage and other horrific situations. And frankly, I'm saddened that members feel the need to distract from this horrific treatment of people by impugning my motives, insulting me, smearing, repeating lies about me to distract from a horrible problem. I sat and testified at a witness at a hearing about a year ago that Ms. Jackson Lee held, in which she brought in 3 survivors of human trafficking. It was a very well done hearing. We heard their stories. They were brave. This is a real issue, a real atrocity that is occurring at our border, and to act like this is some kind of political stunt is a shame.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, want to give you some time, if I may reclaim my time.
Gentleman reclaims.
look, let's just
And
talk
I
about.
want to thank our witnesses for being here. Deeply appreciated. I'm sure the ranking member knows that immigration reform is handled in the Judiciary Committee and not here, but I do appreciate him bringing up the need for it. I'll talk to Mr. Jordan and encourage him to take that up. We heard today from the ranking member about how embarrassed he is that this committee has held 9 hearings on the southwest border. We've heard from our witnesses, though, that the horrific actions of the cartels are worsening secondarily to the policies of this administration. We all know the process. They allowed instant parole. They stopped detention. They stopped deportation. The catch and release policies happened, and the migrants called home. Millions have come. Make no mistake, there was no change in crime or corruption or economic conditions in Latin America. Actually, since COVID's gone, the economic conditions in Latin America have gotten better. The mass migration is secondary to the policies of this administration, period. And there is no legitimate argument to suggest otherwise. Even Merrick Garland agreed that the cartels have taken advantage of these policies and are trafficking large groups to overwhelm the Border Patrol and then pass nefarious individuals the gotaways and drugs around them. The Attorney General recognizes it. Perhaps if the minority party owned that, current administration is failing, perhaps if the administration addressed the problem, we could move on. But the numbers are not going down. CBP's one-app shell game, not releasing the OFO numbers, moving the numbers from crossing over to the ports of entry and then giving automatic parole to those individuals, not decreasing the incentive. They're still coming, and the drug cartels will continue to take advantage of it, just like Merrick Garland said. We've allowed automatic parole through this app, and those numbers are not being counted. The border is open. The incentive for mass migration remains. And as I said, they're coming. The drug cartels are seizing the opportunity. My Democrat colleagues have said it's a waste of time to look into cartel crime. They said it was a waste of time to address the dead Americans to fentanyl. 9 committee hearings is too many. They say, look at all the policies that this administration has done. Well, they're not working. Fix it, and maybe we'll stop these hearings. I happen to believe, personally, as do many people in this country, that the southwest border, the human trafficking, the overdose deaths, the cartel crime, murders, is the greatest threat to this country. So yeah, we're going to continue until the border is controlled and the cartels are stopped. When Americans stop dying, then we'll stop these hearings. Open border, drug cartels seizing the day, partnering with gangs that have taken over the criminal activity in many of our cities, that's what's happening. And the Dems on this panel don't want to discuss it. No one has denigrated immigrants here today. Not a single individual has picked on a particular race of individuals or anything. Yet that's what they want to imply. I am offended by that. This is about migration policies that have resulted in the drug cartels taking advantage of them and killing Americans. I hope the media is paying attention. Americans are dying, and the left is saying our committee's investigating this as an embarrassment. 61% of Americans get it, though. That's the percentage of Americans who say that our border is not controlled by us. Yet investigations are an embarrassment. As for impeachment, my Democrat colleagues keep saying how this is somehow an impeachment effort. I've never used those words, not here in this committee and not at this supposed recording that they keep talking about. They also say that somehow this discussion is racist. It is not racist to say we have a problem at our southern border. It's not racist to say that the cartels are seizing this opportunity of our open border and the automatic patrol and the mass waves of people who are coming. It is not racist to say that. The only reason they bring up that it's racist or that we're trying to impeach or it's some kind of dog and pony show is because they can't tell you that Americans aren't dying. They can't say, oh, look, the numbers are going down on Americans dying due to fentanyl. Look, the drug cartel crime is going down in America. They can't make a valid argument against those facts. And so they say we're racist, or imply that we're racist, or that we somehow or have some game here, or that it's embarrassing that we've had 9 committee hearings on this. Well, I'll tell you when the committee hearings will end. They'll end when this administration starts fixing the problem. They'll end when the White House recognizes that their Secretary of Homeland Security isn't doing his job. That's called a dereliction of duty. That's when the hearings will end. It is the job of this committee to get to the bottom of what's going on, and we will do it. The Democrats are on record. They think this Homeland Security Committee's investigation of the border, the oversight of the border, is embarrassing. They don't want these hearings because they don't want the light shined on what's going on. The decisions made by this White House and the DHS Secretary. Well, like I said, we will not stop until we get to the bottom of it and the problem gets fixed, period. Again, I thank our witnesses for being here.